These motherfuckers lay. Yes, these motherfuckers lay. Fuck them, fuck them. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck. motherfuckers right here. Yes, these motherfuckers right here. Fuck 'em. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck. These motherfuckers right here. Yes, these motherfuckers right here. Fuck 'em. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck.
Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Bounce up, bounce up. Those donkey balls. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing, making all praise.
Sniffing, you can smell them. Those donkey balls are yelling, and they're swinging to the beat of a loser's song. Never turn your back, 'cause those donkey balls are bouncing on your dreams. Suck 'em, suck 'em. Those donkey balls are bouncing on your chin again. What a sin, we've got to grin again and again. Never turn your back, 'cause those donkey balls are bouncing on your dreams. Suck 'em, suck 'em. Those donkey balls are bouncing on your chin again. What a sin, we gotta grin again and again.
He would be so scared to see me.
Everybody thinks we was doing this shit, doxing motherfuckers. Nah, they came at us first.
I got a fire raging in my front yard.
Oh, why did you set your front yard on fire? Are you drinking again?
Smacking off the podcast. Fuck your city, your boss. Because fuck authorities. Smacking off the podcast. Fuck your team, dog balls. Your columns, sports authorities.
Smacking off the podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Smacking Off the Podcast. How you doing, Doug? Oh, I don't know if anybody hear me. Reckon Z. There we go.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I got
All
you,
right.
Ed.
I had the volume turned down. That's why I couldn't hear nobody. What's that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing, Nikki?
I'm good. How are you?
All
Testing.
right.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testicles. Testicles. Anybody got me out there?
I don't have one of those.
1-800 D's nuts, he says. No, it's a true story, guys. I happened to be in jail over something a long time ago, and I dialed 1-800 fuck you to see what would happen, and I got a lawyer's office in L.A.
Like,
Good
seriously?
marketing ploy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I
We
thought
need
y'all
to
would find
set
that.
up a call line, and that should be our number. So
I
people-
thought you were going to say it was one of those like sex lines from the 90s where they charge you $2.99 a minute.
We need
Oh.
one of those.
Yeah, I agree.
Where'd you get that deal? I used to
really
pay
do.
like $4.99 a minute. What?
Thank you
Damn.
for calling Smacking Off. How may I smack you off today?
Are you doing this?
Okay,
Nikki?
okay. Yeah, Nikki's hired.
So
Yeah, you would
Real-
make
real
one
quick,
hell of a
everybody stop.
phone sex operator there, Nick.
So can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
Because for a while I couldn't get anybody to acknowledge it. I think it's because everybody else was talking at the same time. But at first I wasn't coming through. I don't think that I was anyway. Shit, I don't know. I shook it up and now people can hear me, so all is good.
Hallelujah.
Getting excited over the sex line, okay?
So what's going on with Tennessee? And I mean, I keep hearing some shit about Tennessee's quarterback, and of course,
He's
Ted
a-
Chavez hasn't mentioned anything.
I don't know all the details, but I've heard something that his agent had a lot to do with this and really screwed it up.
I'm gonna say this real quick.
An agent would never do that, Ed.
Let's just say this real quick. He's a grown ass man. He's 20 years old. Speak up. If you honestly want to say, I bleed that god awful orange and white, I'm a Vol fan for life, but no, I'm gonna listen to my agent because I deserve 2 million more. No, that's some bullshit.
Does anybody know, is Sean coming in tonight? Or is he still out of town?
So, Nikki, you're 100% right. And the other thing is practicing all throughout the spring and then, playing his card the day before the spring game.
But
That's a
he's been
bad
shopping
look.
around since the playoffs. Since before the playoffs, he's been shopping around looking for another team. He was never a Tennessee Bowl for life.
No, I
He was here
understand
for
that. And there was a story that came out today that North Carolina might be looking at him. I'm like, there's no
Nope.
way Bill
North
Belichick is
Carolina
taking
already
him.
it denied a sit down with him. That came firsthand from an insider.
Yeah, there's no way Belichick is going to put up with that crap. No.
But,
and-
but
Right
also,
now, his options, he has sat down with USC. But I really believe Mr. Riley, he doesn't care. He's the scum when it comes to that type of stuff. He's drooling with that chance of another, transfer portal quarterback. I can turn him into God, whatever. He's my next Baker. But here's the thing. He's going to wait till everyone else says no and then pull that trigger and say, guess what? I only got 2 mil for you.
That,
Then
and
he's
that's,
making
that's
less than what he was asking to begin with.
and
Yeah, he's got no leverage, and the thing is, Riley would be wrong if that's his assessment because Nico is overall he's a pretty good dual threat quarterback, but he's not great, and he's not an accomplished passer. So
He's wrong.
I mean,
I
he's
think
now.
Ohio State should take him. He knew how to throw the ball to him pretty well.
I
I
like
was,
that.
I was I was waiting for somebody to make that joke. You beat me to the punch.
But I
Yeah,
mean, think
welcome
about
to
it. I
welcome
don't
to
think
Columbus. We smoked you in the playoff.
he has a chance right now. K-State needs a quarterback. Okay, but K-State's not going to, they don't want that bad publicity that comes with him. Tulane has already said, we're not taking a sit down with him. UNC won't take a sit down with him. And I think this is called karma. Do y'all remember when Florida put their foot down and said, no, we're not paying a commitment, of $8 million? And from Tennessee fans, all we heard was, oh, you're poor. Oh, guess what? You can't afford him. No, it was Billy saying you're not worth it until you prove otherwise. You're not going to come in here and demand money from me. Go find it somewhere else. And he don't have a team right now.
And that's Jaden Rashada, right?
Yep. So the same thing's about to happen, but there's a little bit different. Nico has enough film that someone like Lincoln Riley can say, I can work with that. He could be my next Baker, Jalen, but
I
I'm
don't
not
think
going to
so.
pull the trigger until everyone else says no, because then he's desperate.
Now, was there some tampering involved from Dan Lanning in regards to him ending up at USC?
Are you talking about the snitching?
I think it was from what I've heard is that Nico's agents were calling around to the schools. So Lanning wasn't calling, asking about Nico. USC wasn't calling, but Nico's agent was putting fillers out on who would want him and what they would pay for. So I think it would be different as tampering. I think I'm not sure.
So, what is a mistake-prone quarterback really worth in college? I mean, I see that's where I'm thinking about this money. So, if I don't know what your budget is the team's budget 20 million? Is it 50 million? Is it 10 million? I mean, if you eat it up on one guy, and he's a leopard doesn't change his spots, and he's mistake-prone, you may throw the playoff away. I'd be reticent to come off with $8 million, $4 million. I mean, there's NFL quarterbacks, right, that probably aren't making $4 million. I don't know that he's an NFL player. What do you got on this guy, Jason?
Well, y'all kind of already tackled kind of the micro individual kind of how everything played out, which when I first thought of this story, when I first saw this story and I saw that Nico was getting out and stuff like that, I all of a sudden saw the whole NIL and transfer portal is ruining college football. We got that hot take over again. But Sunday night, when Josh Pate came out with his bombshell of, well, he was trying to shake them down for more money before the playoff game, it kind of changed my. Let's just face it right now, and you guys have already touched on it a little bit. I'm going to kind of go to more the macro, the big picture in all of this. That this right here it's nothing that's uncommon. Tampering is happening. There's no market cap. And everybody talks about contracts and stuff like that. But really, to tell you the truth, are those contracts really legally binding? Can you take it up into a court and would it be able to hold water? Nobody knows the answer to that. Nobody knows what's legal, what's illegal in college football right now. So from my macro perspective of all this, after all the speculation about whether he was going to be out at Tennessee or not, to whether he's going to go to USC, to North Carolina, which North Carolina, I think they actually picked up a portal commitment from the South Alabama quarterback. So they're out. They're out of the picture. Saw earlier, Tulane is now getting out of the picture. And we've seen conflicting reports about USC. We also see Notre Dame is out, Texas Tech is out, so on and so forth. Here is what is happening. And for all the people that are transfer portal and NIL is evil, it's ruined college football. College football sucks now. To all these people, here's a little beacon of light. Nico Iamaleava, unfortunately, and you could say it was his handlers, it was his pops and everything like that. Like Nikki said, he's a grown man. It's a lesson of, stepping up and saying, yo, pops, let me get this. Let me make my own mistakes, which is kind of what I do with my stepson when it's with stuff like that. It's like, hey, you make the decision. And then later on, when we find the results, I'm going to tell you if it was stupid or not. That's, not the best parenting, but that's my.
No, but it is.
So you wait to find out if it was a bad decision before you tell them it was a bad decision?
I kind of got sidetracked on there. Let me reel myself back in. I
don't have a problem with that kind of parenting because you're not coddling them.
Sometimes you don't need to. But anyway, now that my ADD flared up, let me reel back into the conversation. All the fans that have been hating on the portal, hating on NIL, who hate absolutely everything about it, you got your beacon of light, because even though Nico Iamaleava is unfortunately the poster child, I blame the handlers. He is the market correction in college football that we've needed for a very long time. And Tennessee and Josh Heupel and Danny White, which of course you could say that they opened up the floodgates with the Virginia Attorney General when they got the Supreme Court to smack down the NCAA in their NIL investigation and made the NCAA just basically say, screw it. You know what? We're done. You're on your own. Well, Tennessee, you can say it's the karma, but Tennessee has kind of come back and said, you know what? Enough of this crap. Enough of it. Because I've heard a story. I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a coach in 1 year with a team in the playoff, and he spent more time on the phone and in his office trying to negotiate deals with players before the playoff game to get them to stay, because they were saying, hey, we want more money or we're out. Which, again, there's nothing that says you can't, there's no rule that says you can't do it. But finally, somebody, Josh Heupel in Tennessee, and I give them credit, they finally said no. So now what we need to figure out, or what we're going to observe later on as this thing goes on, are more people, or is this now going to embolden the Dan Lannings and other programs, Billy Napier, insert coach, insert program, insert general manager here, that when they see a quarterback try to come in and shake them down for more money, that is now going to embolden them to say, you know what? You're from your production, you're not worth the raise. So if you want to walk, you go ahead and walk. And here's the other part of the market correction. And I know I'm going on, but I swear it's all going to make sense here in a minute. The report that I saw today is where now I think everybody that's thinking about trying to get that quarterback in the portal, and they're looking at Nico Iamaleava, they're sitting back and they're going to letting the market dictate to let that price go down, and then that's when they're going to capitalize, because finally, and it finally happened. Unfortunately for Nico, that young man, he's the poster child in this, but that's also his handler's fault for overplaying their hand. And finally, hallelujah, finally, because there's no way we're going to get any kind of regulation or any kind of collective bargaining agreements anytime soon, because we don't know when the hell Congress is going to get into this. And that's probably the only way this is going to basically get reeled in is with government intervention. I hate to say it, but that's the only option that I see.
I hope,
Right
I
now,
hope that your perception is wrong.
But we
in
had a
that
full.
the decision whether to give somebody more money is not production based, because then you have this whole it's almost like arbitration between two parties. But the thing is, whether or not these are enforceable contracts or not, and in many ways they're not, there's still a deal. A deal's a deal.
But
I mean, if nobody can do anything about it, then the deal really isn't a deal. Ed.
A deal's a deal. But when one of them doesn't want to hold up to that end, like this one, Nico had a done deal for $2.4 million. And
Right.
Nico then decided to change and wants a different deal. It was the same with Florida. He had a deal for so much money, and he comes right back in and says, no, I'm worth this much. So that deal goes on both sides.
well, and here's the other thing too. And I brought this up a little bit in our group chat during the weekend when all of this was going on. Here's another thing here's another thing that's happened that's also muddied the waters. And I think I understand why they did it, because you look at college football and you look at it, like it or not, it is a business, and you have to stay ahead of the competition. I think the intention of the original NIL laws, when each state started passing them, after the Supreme Court gave them the green light, it was for these athletes to be able to make their own endorsement deals with local businesses for autograph sessions, so on. Nowadays, with TikTok, with Twitch, and all social media, and this is something the NCAA tried to wrangle in, but there's no way in hell you can do it right now in 2025, because you, Nikki, you, Dr. Balls, you, Ed, you, Doug, everybody can now monetize their own brand, especially if they do it right, and they'd be able to make money. Professional athletes have a hell of a more of an advantage than we do. Look at the Cavender twins. They're college girls. They're beautiful. They play Division I football. They have a TikTok. They do dances. They can build followers, and they can make money. And they got endorsement deals, and they've made a lot doing it.
Well,
The NCAA can't do anything about that anymore. They can't.
Here's why when you kept saying, when people kept throwing Tech out there, I said, there's no way he'll go to Tech, because Tech is now running on the same as SMU. Every player makes the same thing.
Well, let me finish the part right here with the NIL collective, because as I brought out the original intention, I think, of the NIL law, where for the schools don't have to get involved with the money. It's basically you go out, you market yourself, and you'll be able to brand and monetize yourself. That was the intention. What happened, and I understand why they did it, because they want these players that are not going to be making $10 million, like a Bryce Underwood, or a $2.4 million, like a Nico Iamaleava. They want to be able to get these other guys in here and maybe pay them $60,000 to $100,000 through a collective, so it keeps them from going to the transfer portal and gives them depth. That's my theory. The problem with the NIL collective is they have now muddied the waters, because now you're paying them through the collective rather than letting them go out and brand themselves. And that has muddied the waters, and that has led to instances like this, where there's no restrictions for a player to go into an office and try to shake down a university for more money through the collective. There's no rule against that. There's also really, they talk about contracts, but let's be honest with you. Let's be honest with ourselves. They're IOUs. There's nothing really governing them. They're just IOUs. They're agreements. I understand Jaden Rashada is suing over it. I really don't know how that's going to go with the University of Florida and Billy Napier.
Unless they're getting thrown out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it would, because we look at it, how legally binding is it? Nobody really knows the answer. It's just the IOU and an agreement, and an agreement constantly changes.
And
The only thing in college football that's maybe legally binding is a coach's contract.
and that's where I come in, where I'm okay with the collective, but it's done a certain way. SMU did it right the first. They knew how to play players. They've done it for years. But
So
everyone makes the same amount. There's not a player that can come in and shake you down.
Real quick, let me welcome Sean Devine. Sean, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey,
Go ahead,
good
jump
evening.
in, Sean.
Sorry I'm late. Apparently you got to pay the government on today's date, so took care of that. Didn't want to get in trouble with the IRS,
We paid that a week ago.
So Sean, I was thinking, Sean, even though your thoughts about Michigan are completely off base, you kind of have a voice that would be good on the Masters coverage.
Well, thank you. We had a great weekend with the Masters. We can talk about that in a few minutes, but to their point, I mean, this is as Jason was saying, this is groundbreaking, and I applaud what Tennessee did. Like, we need to draw a line in the sand here at some point and say what's good for the team, the organization, the university versus the individual player. And I commend Heupel for listen. We're done. We're not playing this game anymore. Let's you either want to be here, or you don't want to be here, and let's stop trying to every off-season transfer portal period, renegotiate, and because there's some of these guys on the team that I don't think are getting paid very much, if any. So, I think about that guy or gal, depending on the sport, that's not getting very much, if any, NIL. They're there because they want to be there, not only to get their education, but they like that university, like that school, and want to be there. So, and wherever Nico ends up, he ends up. Yeah, I mean,
don't you
I'm
think
not opposed to players making money. That's not what I'm saying, but I think there needs to be we need a czar of college football. College football needs to be its own thing, like the NFL, because it's the big money maker in the the barn, so to speak. But I think about the other sports that we like. College baseball doesn't nearly make as much as college football does. I mean, and some of the other sports we like. I like lacrosse. That doesn't make any money, but it's just we need to have some rules and regulations here because this thing was and still is kind of spiraling out of control.
And I think to Sean's point is there has been the yearning for some kind of regulation to kind of pull this through because I've had people argue about, well, there really doesn't need to be any rules and regulations. It's the free market, yada, yada, yada. College football is more popular now than ever. More people are watching it. More money is being made. But we look at the side, and I know Sean brought about making it more about the university and everything like that. I think the reality of it, pulling the curtain back, is that the Kirby Smart, the Steve Sarkisian, the Josh Heupels, all the assistants, everybody going out and recruiting is sitting here going, we're tired of dealing with this crap on a daily basis because instead of trying to recruit somebody to a university, the only thing you're trying to do is just give them enough money to stay. To me, I think that's why Nick Saban retired because he's not focusing on the recruiting trail. He's got to go back and re-recruit his players again. And
the re-recruiting of the guys that are already in your program, that has to be extraordinarily frustrating for the head coach and his staff. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
It's toxicity that it's bringing to the locker room because one player's making so many mil, and then you have this other guy that's putting his heart and soul into the team that's making either nothing or 20,000. That brings a cancer, a toxicity into the locker room.
And there's many fingers that you can point. You can point. I mean, I think we're past the point of pointing the finger at the NCAA. It's pretty obvious that this was a monster that was created by them by trying to, hold on to the old guard, to hold on to the old business model. When we all know in reality, it was inevitable that we were going to get to this point and they weren't proactive, which is why I believe that Mark Emmert was the worst NCAA president ever because he also enabled these conference commissioners and these administrations to let it get out of control to this point. because
I know.
they wanted a little more leeway. They wanted a little more freedom. Now they finally got it, and they're looking at now going, "Oh shit, what have we done?"
Now, I think there is one part of it that was not inevitable. And what was inevitable was that players would get paid for their name, image, and likeness. If they wanted to go to Golden Flake potato chips and put their face on the bag or whatever, have a commercial, represent a car dealership, social media, all those things, right? That was inevitable. But what was not inevitable was people outright paying players, right, and bidding on them. Now, the NIL collective, as a way to get a bunch of money together to decide who to pay, in my opinion, is not in the spirit of the court case that legalized NIL, right? So, therefore, it should be challenged legally on that basis. And whoever does that, right, and it also goes back to Ed talking about contracts, whoever does that will probably be successful because they'll be able to say that the players are being outright paid, regardless if they've got sponsors and donors and boosters paying a collective. They'll be able to outright say that players are being paid. And I think if they challenge it on that particular legal basis, that they would have to lose. And so the only way to avert that is, to Sean's point, is to make a college football czar, right? Because the NCAA is not as acceptable as a ruling body that rules over college football and treats the entity in a way that's clear and concise.
Well, and the thing about that, and I agree on the collectives that they've muddied the waters, but I also understand somebody was eventually going to do it. Somebody was eventually, whether the big schools in the SEC, in the Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, one of those schools were eventually going to be the first to do it, to try to get out ahead of the curve, and then everybody was going to follow along. That felt kind of inevitable, but I also think that it was it's unfortunate collateral damage that has put us in the predicament that we're in. And we, as fans, have been crying for some kind of regulation, for some kind of guardrails. We all have, from Josh Pate down to the common fan. We've all been asking for it.
Well, I think you saw some of that this past weekend with a lot of these. Well, now they're spring practices, not spring games anymore, and the attendance was way down at a lot of places that traditionally will
Look at
get
Bama.
40, 50,000 people. And, I think that's the fans' kind of way of saying, like, we're starting to get fed up with the silliness,
Yeah, I mean,
I think what's sad is, as fans, we were okay with these players making a portion of money that they were making for these schools. If it might have been it's the NIL, the jerseys, they've been in millions for these schools.
And
So we as fans were okay with that. They deserve part of it.
Yeah, I mean, because of television, once you had Oklahoma, Georgia, I think it was 1980, regents of University of Georgia, University of Oklahoma, fought the NCAA. It went to the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, and they won the right to, like the NCAA television-wise had a monopoly and wasn't showing all the games. And it just so happened at the same time that court ruling happened, you have the dawn of cable television and the ESPN. So now you can get all of these games on television. And so that's big money once you have advertising and things of that nature. So, of course, to Nikki's point, I agree. Like, they should be justly compensated more than when I was a college student. I worked in a mail room, like no one's paying to watch me file mail. But we get 90,000 people in these stadiums 6, 7, 8 Saturdays in the fall, and you're tailgating and you're spending money on jerseys and sweatshirts and hats. And that's all because of the players on the field. So we're not opposed to that. But at some point we need, a salary cap.
And it shouldn't be to this extreme.
Right.
Right. But I think a salary cap would be challenged successfully in court.
Yes, Ed nailed it. That's the key right there to all of this. Because when we ask when we talk about, we would love to have guardrails. We want to get this reeled in. It's getting out of control. But the question is, how do you do it? From Greg Sankey all the way to the NCAA. Listen, there are lawyers right now involved in college athletics. I would not be surprised if they have a house the size of a televangelist right now with all the billable hours that they've been getting. By the way, shout out Brad Gillespie, good friend of mine, watching the show.
Is
That-
Bubba on here?
But wait, what about Joel Osteen? Come on.
But the point is, okay, maybe salary cap is too hard of a word, but there needs to be something versus these, and also how often, and Jason would know this because you're more attuned to this than I am, because frankly, I don't want to know how many times a player can enter a portal in a given calendar year, which I think is 3 or 4, maybe. Is that right?
As far as I know, and it goes back to the whole thing too. And Josh Pate happened to be on Pat McAfee's show the other day, and I just go back to this: we don't really know what's legal and what's illegal.
Right? Yeah. We got to first just figure out what the lay of the land is, so to speak, before we can even start implementing guardrails.
I work for a national sports media company, and I don't even know what everything is legal.
That's why I asked you. I figured you had at least some parameters on this. And
well, nothing is illegal right now.
Right.
Until it can't be illegal until we know that it is illegal, right?
Unless it is criminal under current federal laws right now, it is not illegal. And
But what if one of these small schools steps up because they can't afford to hang with the big dogs?
Well, I think you're seeing that already. You're seeing that. I mean, and as good as we discussed this ad nauseum a couple weeks ago, as good as this tournament was for basketball, which it was a very good tournament, you're starting to see that affect those smaller schools that can't compete financially with the bigger schools. And so we didn't have that University of Maryland, Baltimore County upsetting Virginia.
Oh, hey. Okay. I have no idea what happened there. Whoa.
I was sitting there, I'm like, what's going on? All of a sudden I just see Jason.
I was like,
Gotta
you
love
see
the
my
internet.
chest hair through the microphone? I mean, Jesus.
No, I'm glad everybody's
But I
back.
agree with Nikki's
Everybody's
point.
back.
I mean, I think these smaller and smaller schools are going to get financially squeezed out, and I don't know if that's the way we want.
And those schools are the ones that need to come together and find a way to start that lawsuit. Those are going to be the ones that's going to have to. These schools that have money don't give a crap because they can continue to get the big guys in because they've got that extra money. It's going to take a few of these small schools to come together and say, you know what? We're going after.
I mean,
And
in
we're
your
gonna
own
make
backyard, Nikki, you love a little bit. You like Carleton State, do you not? But they can't compete financially with a Texas.
And that leads up to the next point. The next
Well, there's another angle to it we got to get to with college basketball. So in college basketball, it's going to change the whole landscape in terms of recruiting. In college basketball, all you have to do is keep pulling the top transfers, and you're not recruiting high school players anymore, right? And you're not interested in high
You're
school
going to be
players.
recruiting the best college players to the best college program that money can buy, so to speak. Which for you,
So
Dr. Balls, Kentucky, you guys will be fine. But
we're number 2 this year in the amount of money.
Florida just did it.
But what about Bradley or an Indiana State?
They're going to recruit those players, is what I'm saying. They're going to get the high. So here's a shift I'm going to see, and here's a prediction. I'm going to get Swami-like here, right? So here's something we're going to see in the next 3 years. We're going to see a team of recruited high school players, a mid-major or a smaller school, compete for the championship against a team of transport portal players. So we're going to see actual high school recruited players at the mid-level compete for a championship, and that's going to pull the scab off this conversation. That's my
I'd like to see it. But look
I
what
think
Maryland
Doug is
did.
trying to
Their
get a
whole
hold of you,
starting
Bob.
five. Look what
Look what
Maryland did.
happened to
Their whole
Florida.
starting five left, and then the new coach Buzz brought half the Texas A&M squad with him.
So
But
if
look,
Bradley, to Sean's point, recruits Peoria, Illinois, and there's some great ball players out of Peoria, Illinois, guys, and they get the top two guys that year coming out for 3 years in a row. That on the third year they're in the tournament with seasoned players, great talent, and they can compete against the transfer portal players.
Clayton and Martin, two of Florida's top players this season, correct?
Yeah.
Allen
I
High
would say
School
didn't one of them
didn't
start
have
at
stars.
little
They weren't
didn't one of them
recruited.
start at Iona, if memory serves, under Rick
Yeah.
Pitino? Yeah.
And one was with FAU. They
Yeah.
didn't even have stars out of high school because these schools are not paying attention. They were recruited in football, but they wanted to play basketball. So they went to Iona, they went to FAU and waited till that portal opened. Then they had stars because people would watch them and came where they wanted to go.
I got to give Todd Golden credit though.
Anymore.
I give Todd Golden a lot of credit on the one of them. Gainesville is lovely, but man, getting a kid out of Boca Raton is really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
it is.
getting the kid out of Iona, no problem, because those winters can get cold and dreary up there in New York. So that might have been easier. And I know he was from Florida originally, so
Yeah, but Martin went to the Final Four the year before too. So it's kind of like you went from Boca to Gainesville, but I guess the difference is one you can really party at, and the other one is kind of more of an old person's home.
Well,
Now,
even getting
this
Golden,
is kind of water
because
though.
Golden was at the University of San Francisco, which for the viewers out there that don't know the history of college basketball, the University of San Francisco, the Dons in the West Coast Conference do have 2 NCAA tournament titles to their name. One under, when Bill Russell was there. But financially, Florida is going to offer Todd Golden this contract, and USF can't match that. So, but I don't. We begrudge the players getting money, but we don't begrudge coaches. We should, same situation there.
all right. I'm actually glad y'all brought up the mid majors and the small schools, because I'm going to put my crackerjack lawyer hat back on and get the explanation and kind of make this a little.
Give us a little my cousin Vinny. Give us a little my cousin Vinny.
2 youths. You're talking about 2 youths. Okay. So going back to that, everybody remembers the antitrust lawsuit that allowed a group of 5, if they were ranked in the top 15, to be able to get into a BCS title game. That's the weapon these small schools have, is antitrust laws. That's why you have the best mid-major that's going to be in the playoff. That's how Boise State got in, because of an antitrust lawsuit. Otherwise, it would be a powerful invitational, and it would cause a lot of problems. Now, as far as these guardrails, my confidence level on any of this ever coming to pass in the next 5 years is not that great right now. But I can put a positive spin right now. And with Josh Heupel and what Tennessee did is a step in the right direction. How long will it last? Time will tell, but there has been a market correction. But going back to these small schools, like the Tulanes, like the Tarleton States, there is an opportunity right here. Because
my favorite, I hate that we go back to basketball, but real quick, shout out Florida Gulf Coast University, Dunk City,
or Florida Gulf Coast University. So we talked about all of these small schools getting rated by these big schools when it comes to the transfer portal. To build your program.
Damn it, Jim.
But at the same time, okay, you want to build your program. You want to build consistency, because anything in sports, in business, or anything like that, consistency and stability is the greatest recipe for success. Unfortunately, it's easier said than done now. But you look at a Florida Gulf Coast, you look at a Tarleton State, you look at a Kennesaw State, hell, even a Belmont here in Nashville. that if you are starting to get these players and developing them well enough that they can go and get to a higher level at a Kentucky, an Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, UCLA, you name it, you can use that as a recruiting tool for these players that don't get as much attention as say an AJ DePonso or Cooper Flagg. You can go to them and say, "You come to my school, I will get you ready for the D1 level. And when you're ready to hit the portal, you're going to be ready and better by being a part of this program." Then they go to that bigger school, and we've seen it in football too. Think
But
about
I
this.
don't.
Hold on.
I
Think
don't
about,
think you
wait,
should be turning these smaller programs because they're in a lesser conference. And when I say lesser, that's not meant to knock the programs or the conference. I say lesser, and I want to put a parenthesis in that. It's a lesser watched. The reason the power pro conferences are power conferences is because they have the best television deals.
well, of course.
And so I don't want to see, and we're kind of, for those that are on this chat as well as listening, we thank all of our viewers listening and watching worldwide.
Except for Tennessee.
But we don't want to see, and Nikki and I are big baseball fans. We don't want to see like what we've seen in Major League Baseball, where some of the lesser moneyed teams are basically a instead of AAA, they're a quad A feeder, for the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies, the big money we
Right,
if you have all these teams competing, and I'm taking football off the table.
And
To your point, Jason, I agree with the antitrust. That's why Boise State was there.
Yeah, but and I see your point, but there's also a little bit of reality. The reality
No,
is
I got it. But
because think about this. Think about this, and you put yourselves in the shoes of some of these players. Example number one, Cam Ward started at Incarnate Word, had no stars, was getting no recognition whatsoever, wasn't really being noticed. That's why he
for those
started.
listening, Incarnate Word is in San Antonio, Texas, by the way.
Yes.
It's a lovely campus. I've been there.
Well, hang on.
Beautiful.
So Cam Ward starts at Incarnate Word, really an unknown. He balls out. Washington State starts taking notice. He enters the transfer portal, balls out at Washington State, enters the portal again, goes to Miami. And what's about to happen next? He's about to be the #1 overall pick by the Tennessee Titans.
No, it's incredible. No, I agree with that. But let's look at basketball. Let's look at basketball.
Well, hang on.
Tiny Gonzaga, what they've done over the last 20 years now is going to be pinched out because they don't have the financial wherewithal to compete with
Let's look at it this way, and we talked about before the season. And this is the reason why I'm having an issue with the NIL collective where schools can actually pay these teams. Some of our greatest basketball, baseball, you have Rice, you have all of these smaller schools that can't afford these collectives. And now you're saying, well, let's use them as a stepping stone. No, these are schools that used to go to the World Series. These are teams that made it to the Final Four multiple times. These are some big name teams, but because they don't have the money to put out there, we're going to use them as a stepping stone.
But right now, that's the reality right now.
I understand that, but I have an issue, and that's why I said those schools are the ones that need to step up and say, you know what, let's do something about this. And if that means us starting a lawsuit together to put a cap so that we can continue to be that school.
But until
are parochial schools going to want to pay that much money for players, or is it going to be ethical for a parochial school to pay a basketball player $2 million?
But these small schools are doing everything they can to raise this money to stay on the level they were before.
To Bob's point, SMU is essentially a college version of a parochial school. It's Southern Methodist University, but for them, they're lucky. They have just exorbitantly wealthy alums that are willing to pay that. But there are parochial schools that don't have those kind of alums, donors, what have you.
But they're doing it the right way.
And they're trying to, like to Jason's point, these guys that aren't heavily recruited out of high school, they're trying to find those B, and C level players that, okay, they show some upside out of high school. Maybe we can develop them. And then eventually they become like a Cam Ward. Hey, you get scene a little bit here. You move up and you perform there. Which, Jason, to your point, I saw Cam Ward when he was at Washington State and Oregon. He wasn't very good in that game, but that's a story for another day.
He did pretty good in Miami, though.
He did pretty good in Miami. I asked Nikki about that, but yeah,
few
I mean,
more months and it changes. Few more months.
But I think we'll see about that.
Yeah,
I know you guys will have a second home game down in Miami in September, but we'll see how that turns. We'll see how that turns out. But I just think what we're really trying to find here is just sort of a happy medium of, listen, we know the big school, particularly in football, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Texas, they're going to be fine. You know, they're going to be fine. But it's to the point where we don't want to see so much degradation of even the middle programs in power conferences are slightly suffering because of this.
But also to kind of complete my point here, what I was getting to is right now there are no guardrails, and if you are one of the top tier FCS programs, Division II programs, whatever, you're getting rated by these bigger schools. Jared Verse is another good example. Was at Albany, kind of really an unknown, goes to Florida State, builds up his stock, and gets a good NFL draft stock. Think about this. Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a running back at Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Would Jahmyr Gibbs been a first-round pick if he had stayed in entirety at Georgia Tech?
No, absolutely not. No.
So my point to all of this is right now there are no guardrails. Yes, the game sucks right now, but to keep your head above water and not have your program just basically dissolve for the fact that you're getting rated constantly over and over and over again. You turn around, you use it as a recruiting tool to keep your head above water until you can finally change the game. Until then, you have to play the game. And for schools like this is the best route. This is their best recruiting route. It's no longer going out and getting a $500,000 check to go play Alabama, to go play Auburn. You go out and you get these unknowns, these 3 stars that nobody is talking about, even 2 and 1 stars that are not talking about. And if you see potential and you can develop them to where maybe they can get up to an FBS level and be competitive and maybe improve their draft stock, you can use that as a recruiting tool for the next generation of talent.
But that only works for so long because the way that you develop them is with a great coach who then leaves.
That happened to Marshall. What about Marshall? Marshall was destroyed, guys. Who knows what's going to happen? And it's not like Marshall's some chump small school. They're probably the most powerful of all the small schools, right? And then they were just obliterated. And who knows if they'll recover? And it's just sad. I mean, it's a feeling of doom here in the tri-state, across the river.
I told you on this podcast we don't talk about Marshall anymore.
Well, oh.
wait! I never got the memo about this rule.
But Marshall. Oh yeah.
We don't talk about them. We don't talk about Northern Illinois University either anymore.
Yeah, we don't talk about Northern English.
I'm kidding. No, I agree with Marshall's for not a big program. It's a decent. It's like a mid-major for college football, and it's sad. You want to see Marshall every now and then upset. I unfortunately was on the receiving end of that, but I think that's good for that program. I think that's good for their players.
It's a well-run athletic program.
I think they recover because of past players putting money into the program now, trying to get it to recover.
But you can't ask Chad Pennington and Randy Moss to foot the bill for that whole program.
We're going to recover that program.
I agree with you that it just, I mean, they put a lot of guys in the NFL, but they come from an impoverished region, and only a few of them have become superstars. Troy Brown, we got, was a pretty good player there.
Randy Moss.
Yeah.
And I think those are the players that's going to help Marshall recover. They already are trying to. They're trying to put that money into that program so that they don't.
Trust me, I want to see Marshall be good. I think that's good for college. Again, variety is the spice of life. I think we all, for a little bit in this year's past Fiesta Bowl, we're excited. Penn State didn't blow Boise State's doors off until very late in that game. We were all kind
Yeah.
of hoping for a Boise State upset. It's, every now and then it's good for the game when the underdog wins a game,
And
even if it's against our own
it
program.
has to happen more than just a little bit to keep the excitement, not just for that program, but for college sports.
I mean, Ed'll hate to remember this, but I think we all remember and love when Appalachian State beat Michigan. I mean, that was a
I've been
great
trying to
game.
forget it, but you won't let me.
That pretty much gave Appalachian State a name. A lot of people had
Armonte
no clue
Edwards.
who they
I
were
still
before
remember
that.
their quarterback, Armonte Edwards. That was a great day.
Ed, you remember it?
I was traveling to New York during the game.
Yeah, of course you were, Ed.
You
You didn't even catch the news, did you, Ed?
Let me finish.
I
I
just
was
having an
traveling to
emergency
New
real
York.
quick.
I checked into the hotel. I turned on the TV to see our winning field goal attempt get blocked.
So it was your fault, Ed.
Probably.
If you would have just stayed not watching the game, they would have won.
Did you listen to the AM radio on the way there? Did you
Doug, you
on
don't
the
need to
AM
ask Ed if he remembers. Ed remembers Michigan football back to when Jerry Ford played there. So
Yeah, I was in grade school, but yeah.
Ed, I want to point this out just for a second. That was a losing field goal attempt.
That's correct. It was blocked.
Can I pull out a really, really, really awesome, which I wish it could happen scenario when it comes to this Nico situation? So there's now two of the most hated out of Tennessee, and that is Lane Kiffin and Nico.
How you reunite?
How
I don't know if you're a Tennessee fan, do you really need to hate on Nico? I mean, I don't think you hate on him. I think from what every Tennessee fan base has seen is supposedly their quarterback room is loaded. And you told the kid to hit the bricks. He's hitting the bricks. Why would you hate on him?
They hate him. Jerseys being burned. You name it, they hate him.
That just seems that if the coach says we don't need this guy, we're going to be fine. Let him go wherever he goes. And right now, that's not looking great. Tulane even pulled their offer. He'll end up. So maybe he'll end up in Wyoming or Colorado State or wherever he goes. Jason probably has the scoop on that. But
what does the playoff quarterback worth?
As great.
What is he worth, Jason? What is the playoff quarterback worth?
A losing playoff quarterback, we might add.
One that got destroyed.
The answer to your question, Dr. Balls, it's worth however somebody wants to pay him. That's the market right now. Because think about it. Bryce Underwood coming in as an incoming freshman at Michigan has not played a snap in college football yet. But somebody out there was willing to pay $10 million on his potential.
Jeez.
$10 million.
But that's not per year.
No, it's not per year. But a $10 million.
The irony that he's going to the program that produced the GOAT who was drafted in the 6th round with pick 199 is hilarious to me.
The best part is it came from a bored housewife.
But the thing about it is, to answer Dr. Balls' question, there's really not an answer. It just comes down to because like with Nico Iamaleava, all he has to do is just get one person. One. All it takes is one to pay him a certain amount of money, and that's going to be his market value.
And this is why the NFL has the rookie wage scale, because we saw that before the rookie wage scale, they were giving these first round draft pick, crazy money, and they'd be a bust.
That's also why the NFL has a collective bargaining agreement too.
Right.
College football doesn't have one.
And the veterans who have played successfully in the NFL for years are going, this guy hasn't played, to Jason's point, a single down. And this, I'm talking about the NFL. That's why the rookie wage scale happened.
Kind of like DeMarcus Russell.
Yeah, bingo, exactly. So we don't know the transit. Some of these kids transitioned great out of high school to college football, and others, they were a 5-star and really they play like a 2-star.
But that's
So
also the best part is we get to now watch these players that made all this money go into the NFL, and now these NFL players are like, guess what? Welcome to the NFL, because they're going to now put them on their back quite a few times because guess what?
Well, I think the humor. There's another humorous note. Since we're talking college football here, did we see? There's going to be some jerseys retired here very soon. Did anybody catch that in the news?
Shador and Travis.
I didn't know a person that had a losing bowl record could get a jersey retired, but that's just me.
Colorado.
Yeah. Considering they have a quarterback that's an alum that played numerous years in the NFL, who won them multiple bowl games, who doesn't have their jersey retired. Isn't that ironic? Yeah.
What about Bieniemy? Is Bieniemy is his retired?
No, I'd have to look Bieniemy. I got to assume they at least have a statue for Rashawn Salam, their only Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God,
God rest his soul. But
yeah,
I mean, that's just crazy to me that you had Cordell Stewart, who's basically probably their most successful football alum, other than Salam, God rest his soul, that doesn't have his jersey retired, and you're retiring a kid who didn't win a bowl game and one of his years had a sub 500 record. You're going to retire that jersey. There's a little stink on that I don't particularly like, but
Tebow's jersey.
Got a point.
Well, think about this though. Look at Colorado's program before he arrived. The bar was not set too high.
But then retire Dion, because Dion is the one that's made that program. Travis wasn't there long enough to do it. You can't disrespect the past just because you were there 1 year and here I am. Dion is creating this culture.
Listen, I definitely agree with Travis Hunter getting his jersey retired. He's a Heisman winner. That's whether you like that or not. That's
right now.
But the quarterback, that screams nepotism, and it's a little weak sauce. Little weak sauce to me.
It doesn't scream it. It is. I mean, like. It is what it is. Yeah. Did anyone expect any less out of Dion, though? Come on.
Well, I'm just surprised he's not your favorite NFL team's head coach yet. So there's that. But soon.
I said I didn't mind if he came. I just didn't want, if he came as our head coach, I knew that he was going to bring his son to be the quarterback, and I didn't want that.
What team is that?
Cowboys.
Oh, she loves them Cowboys. She's a cowgirl. She loves them Cowboys.
Oh, that would be the most Jerry Jones shit ever if that happened.
I can't believe the marriage of Jerry Jones and Dion.
Could you imagine Dion and Jerry Jones in a room together? Dion doing this and Jerry saying you're not doing this, and Dion telling him, F you, I'm doing this.
Jerry got along with Jimmy for a few years before he fired him. I think Jerry could get along with Dion.
Since we're on the Cowboys for a second, I gotta ask Doug something. Doug, do you remember WTOG 44 out of Palm Beach, West Palm?
No.
Well, that was the station that showed That's the station that showed the Cowboys every Sunday, even though they weren't from Florida. Without fail.
But they're America's team, Bob.
America's team.
I mean, I just having them rammed down my throat, the taste of it. You know what made me so happy in my life in regards to the Cowboys? It made me feel special, right? Is when Tony Romo fumbled. Y'all remember when Tony Romo fumbled
the snap against the Seattle Seahawks? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the most overhyped player I'd heard him since Peyton Manning. I mean, they kept going on and on about this guy and how great he was, and and I never seen it. Bailey was all tore up about this guy. He thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and when he fumbled, it was just special to me. I mean, it was special.
Hey, Rob, you know why he fumbled? You know why he fumbled that day, right? He wasn't wearing those extra comfortable Skechers shoes that him and his wife like to wear on the weekend.
That's it. That's got to be it.
Tony Romo moment. Do you guys remember when he was knocked out in the Giants game? They take him to the locker room, He comes back on the field, and I don't know what they had to have given him an injection of something. He was looking at the Giants sideline. This man was high as a kite, and he was trying to figure out plays, talking to the Giants sideline.
Oh goodness.
And so, and to tie this back into college sports, the mid majors. Tony Romo played college football at anyone know?
Eastern Illinois.
Beautiful Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. You don't blink, you might miss it on I-57. Can you name two other NFL players from Eastern Illinois? One I think is still active, by the way.
There's one in the league, but I can't remember his name. But I know there's a guy in the league from
Nikki
Eastern Illinois.
Nikki loves him, by the way. Nikki loves it.
Which one?
Guys, can I just say like what my favorite Dallas Cowboys moment
So
was?
I'll
of all
answer the
time?
question because nobody's going to get it. Number one, former NFL player from Eastern Illinois, now the head coach of the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton, played at Eastern Illinois. And the other one that's currently active in the NFL, he's a backup somewhere that Nikki loves, the beautiful Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
Jimmy Porn Star.
And I should have known the Peyton one because I just watched that movie, that Adam Sandler movie about Sean Payton.
When I Kevin
And
James.
every Cowboy fan, their AFC team is the Denver Broncos. That's just how it goes. So
Now, real quick, can I just say like my favorite Dallas Cowboy moment in history?
Break it down for us.
is it Leon Lett in Thanksgiving?
Oh no! It was the halftime show on Thanksgiving in 2001.
Creed.
Creed. We all love Creed. Yes, Creed. Yes. Yes.
And you
Don't
know
play too much
that
of it.
was
We
the
don't want to get banned.
Rangers.
Don't do it.
That was also the Rangers theme song the year before last when they won the World Series.
Quite possibly the best halftime show we've ever seen.
And I think Jerry should bring him back next year because they're going back on tour.
They are touring, right? Are they touring with Nickelback? Is that what I heard?
Oh my God!
They're doing a '90s cruise.
And that's the only glory hole that Jerry Jones has had in 30 years.
Oh,
Now let's say that on the Balls Out podcast.
It's a family-friendly program. Come on.
Don't be salty.
On the Balls Out program, in our top 10 greatest rock acts of all time, we did not mention Nickelback. I just want y'all to know that, right? Or any other drop D tune band, right? So, guys, speaking of World Championship great moments, Sean, I know you had to be happy to see the Rory McIlroy success this weekend.
I know we don't get to talk golf on this show a lot. I know it's primarily college sports, and football's done, but for spring and the transfers and all that. And I know baseball's heating up. And then a quick shout out to the Western Michigan Broncos, their first ever Frozen Four national championship in ice hockey. Congratulations to the Broncos. If you've ever been to Kalamazoo, Michigan, go. It's a fun town. Go in the summer when it's nice and warm. Don't go in the winter. It's very cold. But congratulations to them on their ice hockey championship. And then basically we got college softball and baseball now starting to go full bore, which we'll talk about that more in a minute. But yeah, to just give a quick synopsis of the first major of the year, the Masters. And I hope everyone watched at least Sunday. I watched all 4 days. I'm a golf junkie. It's a problem. I got to go to meetings, I guess.
No, there's no such thing as that being a problem.
But if you watch Sunday, even if you just tuned in for the final, the back nine, and the history of Rory McIlroy, who, 14 years ago, he was 21 years old. He approached Sunday, with a chance to win when he was 21 years old, and he flubbed it. He shot an 80 when he was a 21-year-old, and we've all done dumb things when we were 21. But his goal ever since then was to win the Masters, complete the career Grand Slam, and boy, did we get drama. I mean, I think most of us watched that, and I'd love to get everyone else's thoughts, but I was on a roller coaster of emotions. How about you, Nikki?
I cried. I won't even
You and me both. You and me both.
I, being a golf fan, but being a Masters fanatic, watching this.
Okay, let's get that. Let's before anybody. Let me. I got to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
The Masters, all four majors are special.
Yeah.
But the Masters is the only one that comes back to the same course every year. It's just different. It's the cathedral of golf. It's the kingmaker and the clown maker for a reason.
It's heaven on earth.
It's heaven on earth. And I say kingmaker and clown maker because kingmaker, Tiger, Jack, obviously, yeah, Sunday, Rory, but also in the past you've seen the Scott Hokes of the world, the obviously Greg Norman in '96. You've seen a lot of people fail at the Masters. That's why it's both the kingmaker and clown maker. Unlike the other majors have had collapses, no doubt, but the Masters just there's something the way the last,
like it.
particularly, you have Amen Corner 11, 12, 13. Then you have 15, the par 5 risk reward. Then you have 16, the par 3, which everyone will remember from 2005, the Tiger chip in. 17, that's Jack in 86, the putt, yes, sir. And then 18, you go all the way back. Arnold Palmer won once on 18, and he also lost one on 18. So those holes, unlike any other major championship, because those three, the U.S. Open, the PGA Championship, and the British Open, or the Open Championship, they rotate courses. They rotate every year. So the courses are different. The Masters, you know exactly what you're getting every year with these last 9 holes. And basically the answer is, will the golfer execute or not execute? And what killed me was he did the smart thing on 13. He lays up. So now he's got a 90-yard chip in. Even if he's not close, he's going to make birdie. And then he dumps it in the creek. And my stomach, I almost lost my lunch.
I thought he was done.
I did too.
But going back to like the prominence of the Masters, there's no other course or any other major, non-major, I don't care what it is, that when it's that Sunday, those final, I'm going to say 6 holes, it's always dramatic. There is not one year that we've watched it and it's just like, oh, okay, this guy's won it. He's got it. No big deal. It is drama filled. It's exciting. And it keeps your blood just, I don't know, it's just different.
It's the only one that comes close because it goes back to the same course every year. But the difference is the back 9 for the Masters, the whole back 9 is exciting. Maybe 10 isn't the greatest hole in the world, but
not the easiest.
No, it is. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, for all of us mortals, but 10 and maybe 14 aren't the most, sexy holes in the world. But basically, the whole back 9 creates drama. The only thing that's close, that's similar because they go back to it every year, but it's only 3 holes, is 16, 17, 18 at Sawgrass. But that's only 3 holes. You got 7 of 9 at Augusta that can create just incredible drama.
And it does every year.
And as happy as, because I am a Rory fan, I am a PGA Tour fan. Don't disrespect to the live golfers, and they're doing their thing. They got their money, fine, great. But Rory took up the banner, and sometimes it didn't make him look great for the PGA Tour. But he's real. He's real emotion. He wears it, and that's maybe the Irish in him and the Irish in me. We wear our emotions on our sleeves, and when things are great, things are great. When they're bad, we're not afraid to say, man, this stinks. It sucks.
And he said it a lot.
To see him finally break through was that picture on 18, by the way, taken by former MLB Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr., who was there as a photographer, where he's just giving all that emotion on the 18th green and doing it in a playoff. I mean, a playoff nonetheless. The only thing that I think wasn't discussed enough, as happy as I was for Rory, because I wanted him to get it done. I wanted to see, by the way, there are less people There's 6 of them now, career Grand Slammers in golf. Then there are men who've walked on the moon and players who have won the Heisman and gone on to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's 10 of those. There's only 6 career Grand Slammers in golf. But at the same time, I also felt great sadness for Justin Rose, who is such a I was completely torn at the same time. I'm exuberant for Rory McIlroy, but at the same time, I'm very sad for Justin Rose, who now the statement was a statistic they gave was no one has led more rounds at Augusta National without wearing a green jacket than Justin Rose. And he's 44. You don't know how many more bites at the apple he's going to have. So I felt tremendous sadness for him, as well as great happiness for Rory, you know. And I think Rory, you know, he needed to be in that club. He's been that good. He's won literally everywhere other than Augusta. And you just, okay, fine. And to his point, what made it very funny was if you stayed up late and you put Golf Channel on, when he finally got into the media building, which is a building now, he goes, let me start, instead of answering your question, by asking a question. What is the media going to talk about next year when we get here before the tournament starts? They can't finally go, when are you going to win a green jacket, Rory? You know, so I thought that was great.
Hell yeah.
It's an every year thing. If I'm not in front of the TV, it's on my phone. I'm following it some way. Every year, there's something that makes it dramatic. There's something, to me, I can just watch the course. Being there so many times, to me, it is honestly, it's heaven on earth. It's probably the most.
It really, if you haven't been, if it's something, even if you don't even like golf, just being on Augusta National for even a day is it's so special. I love the fact they don't let cell phones in, because you're in the moment. You know, I've been once, and hopefully I'll be lucky to go a second time. But there is nothing that Augusta National doesn't do to a 100% A+ standard. I mean, even Nikki will get a kick out of this because obviously she's been there and I've been there. But even going to the facilities as a patron when you're there, the bathrooms are the cleanest bathroom. They're cleaner than the bathroom in your house, and you're on a golf course. You know what I'm talking about.
One behind you. It's not like they take every ounce of this course.
There's not a speck of trash ever not. Yeah, I mean, everything is done to the nth most degree for perfection and excellence, all the way down to, going to get a sandwich, getting a coffee, getting a soda, you name it. Everything is done to an exemplary standard because they want you, the patron, who is there to experience that sporting event, to have the most, impeccable time of your life. And I think there are more sporting events that should take note of that.
Sean, you're going to tell me that you kept your badge because they're worth money.
We can talk offline about that. I have, that was not my badge to keep.
Some badges you can keep and some you can't. Your practice round badges and par threes, they're paper badges. You can, if you got a badge during the show, those have to go.
If I got a badge from a family or friend that I'm not going to divulge that information, that badge was returned to them. I thanked them effusively by sending them a couple weeks later probably over $500 worth of Omaha steaks.
Yeah.
So no, I did not get to keep my badge, but
just par three badges and practice round badges, par three badges, That's the best part of par three is it's the only day that you can actually interact with the players. You can have fun.
Practice rounds in par three. The players are a little looser. You can interact.
I
with
always
them.
had mine signed by ones here and there, and they went to my uncle in his
The
coffee.
thing that lost on me that I thought was a really true, great statement from last month after the Arnold Palmer, and then Shane Lowry after Saturday's round was the one thing I agree with him. Listen, they've had a bad round. Let them get at least 30 minutes to
Yeah.
collect themselves before sticking a microphone in their face. It's the only sport, other than maybe combat sports, where the microphone literally, as soon as the action is over, is in the athlete's face. You know, and unlike the Super Bowl where the guy gets to go in, take a shower, take his pads off, and then he'll come out and address the media. You know, if you have a bad round on the golf course and you literally just step off the 18th green and a microphone's in your face, you know, I agree with the golfers. I don't think that's right to them, you know, because
No, and you have to understand they're here for that whole week. There's over 100,000 plus people that come, and they're trying to find them. It doesn't matter where they're staying. They always are being chased. There's not a downtime like a normal athlete. There's always someone trying to find you.
And their days are long. Remember, think about this. You're getting there on the course whenever your tee time is. You're usually there 3 hours before the tee time. You know, for meal, physio, stretching, and then you hit the range, loosen up. You know, maybe even hit the gym. Rory said he hit the gym. I gotta really give him credit. He hit the gym mostly as something to de-stress because it's part of his process. But they're there 3, sometimes 4 hours before their round even starts, and then a round is generally 4. The Masters 4.5, 5 hours. You're talking 9 hours on the property, and you're being, and you've got, like Nikki said, you got, obviously fans that are chasing you. You know, the administrators who are running the tournament are running it from here, there, and everywhere. There's TV, there's radio. Even I know people radio. Sirius does the Masters on the radio. You can listen to the Masters on the radio.
Don't get me started on radio.
So these golfers are there in an incubator for 7 to 9 hours, and then they just get done. Those that have had a good round, obviously, that's an easy discussion with the media because they've had a great day. But as we all know, any of us that have played golf before, when you have a bad day, you're not in generally the most chipper mood. And to have a microphone in your face and a guy or gal asking you, well, what went wrong with that iron on 7? Like that's, so I think to Shane Lowry's point, I think they need to give them at least a half hour to shower, change, and then let them come out and address the media. Because now I don't agree with them not addressing the media, particularly at the majors. I think they do need to, but at least give them a cooling off period of a half hour or an hour, before they got to go, right after a round. That's brutal.
Real quick, before I got to head out, I'll do a confession. In the last 20 years, I probably haven't watched as much golf as I probably did in the past. But Nikki and I, having lived in Augusta for a little while, which is how we know each other, we have a connection to Augusta.
Baby.
We have a connection
Both
with
of
Augusta.
you at least have John Daly's autograph, I hope.
I have only seen John Daly's RV parked in the Hooters parking lot. That's about as
You didn't go in and get the autograph. Okay.
I was his server for multiple years, like his only server when he came into Hooters. I was the only one.
But I will say this, and also to talk about golf, and you talk about like you stressing Rory McIlroy going to the gym. Quick funny story on my wedding day, and Nikki knows him, but Tommy Roach, who was my best man at the wedding, we decided after we woke up because we had drank a few at the West End the night before after the rehearsal dinner. But he took me to the Top Golf in Mid City in Huntsville, Alabama, to just hit a few balls. Because I will admit I was a tad bit nervous when I woke up that morning and thinking, oh shit, hell's freezing over. I'm about to get married, and I'm sitting here 41 years old, about to get married. But then we was like, hey, we're gonna go top golf, hit a few balls before we got to get dressed and go to the botanical gardens in Huntsville. So after hitting a few balls, and I was like, okay, yeah, good. And after that, I was good. There was no nervousness whatsoever. I was good, ready to go. Wedding done, honeymoon, all that. Well, the honeymoon is actually next week in Disney World, but golf helped me through that ordeal. But the
So
cool
the
thing,
it took away that mental blockage, I want to call it. Like it just took away the bad feeling,
and
nerves.
and just knocking the hell out of something, I think helped too. But going back to this Masters, which is really the only golf major that I've really watched consistently in the last couple of years because of my connection to Augusta. But seeing the history, and I will admit my FPS, my Falcons battered syndrome was starting to kick in with Rory McIlroy, because I even made the comment about, oh no, Rory McFalconroy. Oh God, it's going to happen, isn't it? And it was
28-3, right? 28-3.
Yes, 28-3. I'm like, oh God, oh God. Like I did it as a joke at first, and I was like, oh God, I'm speaking this into existence. I hope this doesn't get out. But
I was thinking the same, not so much that, but I was like thinking, knowing Rory's just, last year at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, the U.S. Open the year before that at LA Country Club with Wyndham Clark, St. Andrews in 21 with Cam Smith, 2018, all the collapses he's had since he last won a major in 2014 at Valhalla. I was thinking the exact same thing as you.
Yeah, but to see it, like you mentioned, Sean, about like the rarity of a Grand Slam champion in golf, and in comparisons to Heisman winners that went on to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
you're absolutely right.
But just to kind of see that, and now he's in a club of 6 in a rare fraternity in golf. That's an accomplishment that I can respect. I think anyone can respect, even if you don't like the sport of golf, is for the fact that there are only 6 people throughout history on
and
planet
2 of them are dead, by the way. 2 of them are dead.
Okay, we didn't have to say that, but yes,
time waits for no man or woman.
Of course. But to that point, 6 in the history of the sport have gone on and been able to accomplish that. And even if you wanted to root for Dustin Rose to win it, which I think everybody was rooting for Roy, I was almost thinking I may have cursed him, because really I didn't have a dog in the fight. I was just watching because I hadn't really kept up with it as much. But I knew the story of the potential of the Grand Slam and the history of it. And to see it happen, it was really, really cool. Almost kind of like seeing a Triple Crown in horse racing. You may not have a dog in the fight. You may have any kind of skin in the game when it comes to horse racing. But to see something, it's almost kind of like the shooting star or the eclipse.
I think that's an absolutely perfect analogy, because I think most of, other than maybe Bob and maybe Ed, because they're a little older than us, but
hey,
no, that's not a knock. That's not a stop. The rest of us on this podcast had lived our whole lives not seeing a Triple Crown. Like I'm 42. Like I had lived my whole life until I think it was 2015. American Pharaoh finally broke through. We had never seen a Triple Crown. Now Ed probably saw Secretariat. Ed might go all the way back to Man of War. I don't know. But Bob probably saw Secretariat, maybe Seattle Slew, maybe was it Affirmed after
Did you know, this is a fact, that when Secretariat passed away and they did an autopsy, they discovered that his heart was twice the size
of a normal. Yeah, I did.
Yep.
I remember. Yeah.
I mean, that performance.
I probably call it something, Sean. I'm a little older than the rest of everybody else.
I wasn't excluding. I wasn't excluding you as well, Doug.
I mean,
but most of the viewing public had never seen a Triple Crown, and those that weren't attuned to golf, the last Grand Slam was Tiger, but Tiger did it so fast. He literally did it in
Right.
one summer. He did it in one summer. He won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. A month later, he went to St. Andrews and won the British, and that was it. That was like
It was fast, Sean. It was like two rabbits fucking.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that may have been a fitting analogy for Tiger at that time, but also Tiger Woods in his prime was an absolute anomaly. I think we could all agree.
Yeah, and what superseded him just winning the Grand Slam, he went like that year that he completed the career Grand Slam. The bigger focus for him was working on his Tiger Slam. So that was only part 2 of a greater story, which was so in the summer of 2000. For those of us that would time travel back, he didn't win the Masters in April, and this is before they had reconfigured the majors. He goes to Pebble Beach in 2000, destroys Pebble Beach. I think he won by 12 strokes. He needs to go to St. Andrews in July. U.S. Open's always in June, ends on Father's Day. Goes to St. Andrews in July, wins the British Open, completes the career Grand Slam. August, I believe he goes to Valhalla, wins the PGA Championship when the PGA Championship was still in August. Now it's in May. Wins that, and now the focus, like the career Grand Slam, was completely kind of brushed aside. Not because it's not something special, but he had the chance, and we had to wait the 8 months, forgive me on math, to get back to Augusta in 2001 for him to win in 2001, and that completed the Tiger Slam, where he's been the only golfer in history to hold all 4 major championships at one time. So that's why I think Tiger's career and also Tiger won the career Grand Slam 3 times. So that's why this one, we didn't think for a number of years, because of how poorly Rory has played at Augusta at times, he's missed a number of cuts, that he was ever going to get it done. I mean, people, the most respected names in golf, we're talking on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. If he's ever going to do it, it's got to be this year. And that's what made it so special.
Did it feel awkward? Did it not feel? I mean, I know we've had a few years where we didn't have Tiger, but this year, him not, it just didn't feel right. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that, but I think that's something we're going to need to deal with going forward. I think you're going to see
I know,
less
but
and less.
I
I mean,
know a lot of people don't really like him and everything, but it doesn't feel right.
I just think, the number of it, Nikki, is the fact that in December of this year, Tiger Woods will be 50 years old.
But he still looks damn good. I'm sorry.
Well, that's however he looks, however you think he looks. Yeah, I'm not saying.
And you know what? And to be honest, I think it's really sad that Daly doesn't. I think John should be out there every year, no matter what.
John, that was the one course John didn't do very well at.
I don't care. He deserves it. We hate that our childhood heroes get old and retire and whatnot, but and I'm just as big a Tiger fan as anyone. But it's sexy.
Seeing Tiger slog his way through rounds with all the rebuilt body parts.
That's true. That's why John Daly should always be there.
John Daly's been immortalized in the meme with Tiger Woods, and
yeah, I mean
that's the top of the mountain for John Daly.
It's not good for golf to not have him on the course for us women to drool over.
Well, the thing about with Tiger Woods,
if you're drooling over John Daly, that gives every man hope.
Exactly, he is
dad bod central, baby. But the thing with Tiger Woods is because I think everybody kind of struggles when you look at like your childhood heroes or the heroes of your youth, and they're not the same as they were during that time. Like with Michael Jordan going out and trying to play for the Washington Wizards.
I would say watching Michael Jordan in a Washington Wizards jersey made my stomach curdle. That's a great example.
And understandable, but he still had a little bit of game. He just didn't have the game of what he had in the 90s during that run with the Bulls. But in a way, you still kind of held out some hope. Like,
Yeah, it's like Burt Reynolds. It's like Burt Reynolds from Smokey and the Bandit, and then Burt Reynolds from what was the one where he was the director of the porno films?
Boogie Nights.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly, man. Those are two different Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's the jersey that made it the difference for me, when I look at Michael Jordan, it wasn't that, I mean, we knew he was getting old, but when we think of Michael Jordan, we think of him in that Bulls. And then all of a sudden we're seeing him in something different. It just doesn't sit well. It was like me and Emmett Smith. It didn't sit well.
You love him in that Phoenix Cardinals jersey, didn't you?
I don't even remember him. You know what I mean?
All right.
I have a great iconic photo. I have a great iconic photo of the legends, the all-time NFL rushing leader, Emmett Smith, 18,355 yards for his career, and the all-time wide receiving leader, which is Jerry Rice, 22,700 and change. Jason, you can fact check me on that later. And they're dapping each other up after an NFL game. Emmett is wearing an Arizona Cardinals jersey, and Jerry is wearing a Seattle Seahawks jersey.
It just isn't right.
And you just go, what is going on here?
Like Joe Montana.
Joe Namath wearing a Rams jersey, right? You know, after he'd been with the Jets for all the years. Joe Montana in a Chiefs jersey. Yeah, it's just there's certain players that Ken Stabler in an Oilers jersey. You know, like
I block it out of my head. I blocked that. Those are bad.
I think we all do.
All right, I have gone 90 minutes without one professional wrestling reference, and I'm going to throw it right here on this subject here.
Right.
Going back to the wrestlers of your childhood, like Rey Mysterio Jr., who was this high-flying, acrobatic, luchador wrestler who started it, who got his mainstay in American ECW before going to WCW, springing off of the top rope, doing somersaults. But you look at him now, as he is older, he is not as acrobatic, not as high flying. He's still.
Can I give one? Can I give one?
To that, I'm still.
What about when the 1, 2, 3 kid got fat?
Oh God.
But I don't even know. I think maybe it's a mindset, but I'm still an acrobat. Okay. In my head, I'm still a Hooters girl. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
See, now that's where it's a little different, at least on my end. Like, I got volunteered. I was wearing it, and they go, "Oh, you like football? Come join our flag football team." I'm 33. Okay, sure. And I run an out route, and you blow a hamstring, and your doctor goes, "You're going to need to take it easy for 6 weeks." That's when, I am suddenly old now. That's the mind is willing, but the body goes, "No, you're not 18 years old anymore."
But I said all that. I brought up Michael Jordan. I brought up Rey Mysterio, really just to say this. Those were two examples of, like, it was difficult for me to accept Father Time. It was really hard for me to accept. With Tiger Woods, it wasn't as bad because I knew he had the surgeries and everything like that. And when you saw him, you saw that there was a little speck that was there, but it's not the same Tiger Woods as what. And I was able to accept that a whole lot easier. And going back to what you were saying, having him out there, do the Arnold Palmer tour like Arnold Palmer did at the Masters in 2004 when I was there, where he did his final tee shot in Augusta. Do that with John. Do that with John Daly. Do that with Tiger Woods.
I think it's different with Tiger, and I say that because I agree with you on Arnold Palmer. I think the reason it's different is because the Arnold Farewell Tour was so apropos to Arnold. Arnold was that way when he was at the height of his power. He was a man of the people. When Tiger was really, like, people forget, when Tiger was at his prime, he was a killer. He wasn't friendly to anyone. Like, he was trying to destroy you. And so now trying to change this narrative of him being a jovial, friendly guy, which he is in real life, no doubt. But in reality, like, when he was at the peak of his powers in golfing, he was friends with Tiger and no one else. Arnold was always friendly to everyone,
That's-
regardless
that's
of
the
when
thing, is
Arnold was
Tiger
good and when
wasn't
Arnold was bad.
friendly in person. He wasn't the friendly golfer in person either. That didn't come until later when he realized, holy crap, my wife just gave me even worse persona.
No,
He
right. But what I'm saying, the reason it worked for Arnie was Arnie from
He's a good
before he
guy.
was famous was friendly. When
Yes.
he became famous, he was friendly.
Yes.
And then when his power as a golfer, as he aged, declined, he was still friendly. So from the beginning through the middle to the end, Arnie was always friendly. Arnie loved the people, and the people loved Arnie. At the beginning, a lot of people didn't like Tiger because Tiger didn't do autograph sessions. He was curt with the media because he was there to win. And I don't begrudge him that.
He was an asshole. He was a
Yes, he
cocky
was.
asshole. I think
He
that's
was.
the reason I loved him.
I think that's why we all did, because we wanted to see greatness. And he was. I mean, he's got the second most major championships, 15 to Jack's 18. And I personally think if Tiger had stayed healthy, he would have broke that record. He's tied with Sam Snead for the most wins all time with 82. But to try to, the media is kind of trying to rewrite this narrative now that he's injured and can't really play and that he's jovial and friendly. Well, people soften with age, and he has softened with age because he realizes, the light is bright at the end of the tunnel. He's not going to break Jack's record. He might not even break his record or his tied record with Sam Snead. He might not win even the John Deere Classic again. And that pains us, but it's a combination
for that one.
of 8 back surgeries, 4 knee surgeries, wrist surgery, Achilles surgery, shoulder surgery, you name it. I mean, he's probably as carved up as they used to do the old highlights on ESPN about how many different injuries and surgeries that our guy, God rest his soul, Steve McNair had when he played quarterback for the Titans. So I'm not quite buying the Tiger, friendly farewell tour. I think you'll see him notably
with Tiger.
You'll see him at the PGA, and you'll see him at the British Open, and that'll be that. And then while he plays with Charlie, his son, at that father-son event in December, that'll be that. And
But I think with Tiger, it's exactly what you're saying. You either love him or you hate him. He was one of the first bad boys of,
definitely. He's very polar. Jack
You
to
either
a
love
lesser
him. No one hated Arnold.
Jack to a lesser extent was a little polarizing like that. You either liked Jack or you didn't. Jack could be he's known as colloquially as the golden bear, but at times he could be the Frosty the polar bear because he wasn't well loved, and at times because of he was against Arnold. He kind of kept Arnold back, and everyone loved Arnold. So Tiger's to a lesser extent similar to Jack in that manner, other than obviously the winning. But I think that's why everyone, and by the way, this is the highest Masters since Tiger's win in 19, is that Rory has his faults, he has his foibles, but he's real. He has a lot of other than he's wealthy, which not all of us are, but he does have a lot of the same, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and that's what people want to see.
But he's a normal guy.
The reason people weren't as excited about Scotty Scheffler is when you go win the Masters tournament and you go, winning the Masters tournament doesn't change me. I'm the same guy. That doesn't do it for people who like you or who don't like you.
What's that, Doug? What was you going to say?
Bob, if you had one thing you could say to everybody, one last thing tonight, what would it be?
Fuck your team.
Fuck Tennessee.
All right. Fuck you, Bob. Good night, everybody.
Mwah.
Thank you for supporting Smacking Off the Podcast. Make sure to stream in every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for an all-new live cast.